Hey guys, welcome back. This is Cade, and today we have a new episode of the Creatives in Depth podcast. And for today, we have a brand new guest on the channel, and that guest is none other than Megan Mickela. Hey Megan, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Kate. Thanks so much for having me. Very excited.
Oh yeah, it's good to have you here. So first up, just based on your experience as a filmmaker, do you remember the moment, maybe from your childhood, that really sparked your love for movies in general?
Sure, yeah. I think there's definitely quite a few moments that I would say in my past that have sparked that kind of moment for me. I would definitely say the earliest memory would have been something like The Sound of Music as a child. That was my earliest memory of watching a film, and I think the main character of Maria, was a huge, huge step outside of what I saw in my day-to-day life with the women around me. But in many ways it also reflected the powerful women that I saw, and just that film was monumental in my early years in shaping my view of women, my view of womanhood. So yeah, I think that was a big film for me, and it definitely led to a deep love for films in general, as you can obviously see. So
Well, and I'm also curious, so growing up, did you always want to be a filmmaker, or were there other careers that you were interested in exploring? Also, just based on everything you've been through, what would you say motivates you most as a filmmaker and a storyteller?
yeah. Oh, so I didn't always want to be a filmmaker. No, I think when I was very young, I was very into athletics and I was big into swimming. And for a long time, I really wanted to professionally swim. But I think as I got older, I loved athletics, but I think that the athletic world, specifically in the US, is incredibly competitive and in many ways a bit toxic. And I unfortunately didn't feel as welcomed as I could have been. So I kind of grew out of it, unfortunately. And filmmaking and films themselves became a bit of a safe space for me in the way that I could leave this world of athletics, of basketball, when I got older, and I could come home and I'd have that safe space of watching a movie and seeing these characters and these places and these locations and these different things that I could really connect with outside of my own reality. I think what motivates me creatively, there's a few different things. I think as I got older, a lot of my creativity came from reactions to everyday life, specifically social situations, social issues going on in the world. I can definitely speak to the fact that I really identify with as a screenwriter. I definitely really enjoy writing as a main thing in the film industry. And for me, when there's a political situation that I feel very strongly about, I think that's when I feel the most creative. But that's very specific, I'd say, just to writing in general. So I have strong reactions to that, and I want to write about it. And I want to create a story that tells the way that I feel, authentic to the way that many other people are feeling. So I think, yeah, a lot of the creativity comes from what's going on in the world. I mean, I can expand on that because I did my master's in screenwriting, and it was just a hugely transformative experience in that I left the country. I went to a different place, and I still live here now. And it was kind of stepping stone in that way that I knew, and I've always known that screenwriting was exactly what I wanted to be doing. But I've expanded now and I'm working for a film festival. And now a huge part of what I do is programming. And that basically entails watching many, many films from amateur filmmakers and professional filmmakers and big studios as well, and deciding what goes where and how it would work into how it would work in many different festivals, because we also put on a couple of short festivals as well. And the process of programming has just been incredibly transformative. I guess I never really thought that it was something that I would enjoy, but it's not really in the three steps of film. You wouldn't think it's in development, production or editing. It wouldn't fall into those categories. It would fall into some fourth category that film festivals would really go into. And that's where at this moment, that's where I'm really, really finding a lot of learning about so much about the film industry, especially over in Ireland. So I'm very, very much enjoying that.
Well, and looking back, when it comes to the very first film-related project that you ever worked on, I'm curious, what was it and what was your experience like making it? And, also when you look back at it today, are you proud of it still?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I'd have to think pretty far. The first thing that comes to mind, honestly, is when I was 10 years old, I convinced my elementary school class to film a video about why we should get, it was some competition, why we should get free tickets to go to Universal Studios, the Harry Potter world, because I was a big Harry Potter fan at the time. And I kind of just wanted this role of using the film camera and kind of at the time I was directing. I wouldn't have known this at the time, but and telling people where to go, what angle we wanted to use, kind of drafting up. It was a filmmaking process in a way that I didn't understand at the time. And the ability to, I don't know, to shape something that I didn't see possible before. I think that I kind of surprised myself. I surprised myself in my own ability to work with people and to work with my classmates and to translate my ideas through the camera. I think that it was a huge moment for me. And just as a 10-year-old who was given a camera, it was a moment where I realized a lot about myself. So that's the most notable one that I can think of.
Well, and talking about college, so when you studied film in college, were there any classes or maybe even projects that really helped you understand which areas of film that you did want to explore most, or maybe any areas that you didn't want to explore?
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, there were a lot. I'm sure that you'll have people on your podcast that will repeat this, but Teresa Podlesny was a professor that many of us had that was just changed a lot of things for me. She stood out as one of the most important lecturers, professors I've ever had. And she was really huge in shaping what I wanted, what I looked for in my future, what I thought about my future, how I looked at film, and so much about my film degree at Keene State was shaped around this lecture and what she had to say and what she gave to me as a student. I had a couple of classes with her. She had a road movies class that was just monumental, and I remember all of the films that we watched in that class. And one of them really, really set in stone the fact that I wanted to do my capstone on the refugee crisis, specifically in Syria. So that was quite important to me. I would say, other than that, I did a lot of, there was a women in film class and it was taught by Joanne On, who also hugely supportive professor who I worked with closely. That was a big one because also I really enjoy the kind of the intersection of feminism and film and theory. More to that, I took a class with Juan on Eastern Asian cinema, and I still to this day talk about it all the time over here, especially in my master's courses. Juan showed a film called Audition from 1999. It just recently showed in one of my favorite cinemas over here. And I made all my friends go. And Joanne told a story about how she met her husband and they went on a date and they watched this film. She fell asleep and she made him watch the whole thing again. Now, if you've seen the film, it's a particularly difficult watch. And I remember two of my very close friends, Anna and Georgie, they were watching it with me. And by the end of the film, we were stunned to silence. I think a few of us shed some tears. That was definitely a moment I will always hold close. And I think that film in general is a top three favorite films for me because of that and because of what an impact it had on me. So many film classes there I were hugely important to me in shaping who I am today.
Yeah, and when it comes to just some of your fondest memories of studying film in college, aside from the professors you got to work with and the projects you got to work on, what are some of your fondest memories specifically? And this can relate to also maybe any students that you got to work with most.
Oh yeah. Oh well, I have to say Georgie Gentile and Anna Carolina Costa, two of my very close friends who I adored working with. And I mean, we actually did work together in a professional capacity because we worked in the equipment room together. We also worked on some films together. Georgie helped edit my entire capstone film with me, and Anna was often there in the room giving advice or just hanging out with us. So all the moments that I spent with them were, I mean, are just treasured. They're two incredibly talented women, and I was very lucky to have them around in that last year. I think past that, I think we just had a really good class. Like we had so many talented filmmakers. Hunter's gone on to do incredible things, and we all knew, I think, from a very early stage that Hunter had an incredible cinematography talent. So watching her go on to do great things has been so wonderful. And Hunter and Cassidy, Chloe and Felicity. Yeah, I still keep in touch with Felicity a bit. Yeah. Oh, they were so lovely. And Chloe too. Chloe's photography is incredible. really, really good. I think, again, that group was just so talented, and it's been really, really wonderful to see how much they've grown and all the things they've gone on to do. Cassidy posts a lot. She posts a lot of artwork that is incredible. So that's been lovely to see. And Louis Cassidy, and who else? I'm always trying to think. Oh, and Jess, of course. Jess, I'm so happy to see that she's still working in, I think she's working in Boston from what I could tell. And just listening to her podcast with you, of course, was really, really sweet. That was nice. Just seeing where everybody's gone. I know that Dominic, who was in my capstone class, recently got married to Freya. That was really, really great to see. That was just so sweet. I was very happy to see that. And I know Van is working, I think I thought he was working at a TV station, but it's nice to see everyone doing their own thing because really we did get so lucky with all of the people who were around us and the amount of talent just in our graduating class. It was very, very impressive.
Well, and just continuing with that, when it comes to the process of filmmaking, in my opinion, one of the best and most rewarding things about that is definitely the collaborative process. And has that ever been one of your favorite aspects when it comes to filmmaking? And also, is there anyone who you've collaborated with most frequently?
Oh, well, I'd have to give that one to my sister. Yeah, I immediately right away. I always tried to have my sister included on on any of the projects that I did, to some capacity at least. Maybe not the ones I did in my master's, but definitely my sister gets to read the scripts. My sister gets to be involved. My sister helps a lot of the final decisions. So Molly Mickela would be the one who would be reading everything first or looking at things first. Maybe not reading the scripts, but definitely looking at the videos. Molly was played a big part in my capstone. My sister was involved in that a bit. And throughout high school, there were a lot of productions where Molly at least was present, if not helping, but usually just present. So I'd have to give that one to my sister. But definitely there's been a load. Georgie actually, who worked on my film with me in Keene, she worked on like every single night in the last semester. She was helping me with my film editing, and it was a monumental task, especially considering she had loads of other work to do. So that was huge. I only regrettably only got to do that one film with her, but that was a huge, huge help. I think the few things that I worked on with Anna as well were so much fun, and her creative perspective is one that I have very, very rarely experienced. She's got a great talent and a great eye for creative projects. So a lot of the people that I worked in my last year, everybody really who we've mentioned, like I didn't get to work with them as much in the later years, especially because I was gone the third year. But even just watching them was so much fun. Just watching them and getting their advice on our projects in classes, that was so, so, so helpful. And we were very lucky to have that again.
But actually, one thing I did want to ask you about, so for you as a filmmaker and based on all your experience, have there ever been any big challenges or struggles that you've really had to overcome to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, I think all filmmakers in some capacity or another undergo struggle because it's innately a bit of a challenging career. I think the reality for a lot of people who follow this path is a very, very challenging. It's a bit of an uphill battle because there's not always a lot of money involved. And I can certainly say for myself over here, Irish film is huge right now. It's huge, but it's a very small industry and it's very, very difficult to get into. So for a long time, that was something I struggled with, and I could only find it part-time. But I'm very lucky that I had a great education. I have very strong foundation of friends who also either work in film or they studied film. They all studied film with me, actually. And I'm lucky to be surrounded by people who are super uplifting of what I'm trying to achieve. So that's always been something that I've had. That's kind of the backbone for everything. But I definitely think, as far as what was challenging, writing a dissertation for a master's I would say that was probably the hardest thing that I ever did. And I only had 3 months to do it, and it was very long. And I probably wouldn't have made it if I didn't have the friends that I have today. But I'm lucky to be able to have them around and have that kind of support. Yeah, master's dissertation. That's that was beyond challenging, but also kind of fun. It was a topic I loved and great.
Well, and I'm also curious for you as a storyteller, does creativity in general ever help you when you're in a bad place? Specifically, has there ever been a particular time in your life where creativity really did help you?
Sure, yeah, I think many many of us can say, many filmmakers, many people who enjoy film can speak to that. I know in high school was a very challenging time, just wanting to, feeling a bit like in a fishbowl and you know everybody, everyone knows you, and you just kind of want to get out. And for me, that was a challenge for a long time. And I think living in New Hampshire also, I definitely had my challenges. I wanted quite badly to get out, and I was lucky enough to be able to not to get out of New Hampshire, but you know what I mean. Like I was lucky enough to travel. And for me, it was in a huge way, my own creativity allowed me to move over here, really. It allowed me to get my degree. But in high school, I'll say specifically, definitely when there were moments where I was having a hard time, I would watch movies, and I watched many movies a day. And you can kind of escape reality in that way. And sometimes the reality or the film is not showing something that's better than your own reality, but it's a way to step out of your own brain and walk in somebody else's shoes. And I think I needed that a lot as a 18-year-old who was, not in the best place. I wanted to think about other things. I wanted to be somebody else. And I got to do that in movies. And that was really special. So I always find that in the film.
Yeah, for sure. And looking back on everything that you've been involved with as a young filmmaker, what are some of the projects that you're most proud of when you look back? Also, are there maybe any projects that you're not fond of when you look back at them, or anything that you maybe regret doing or not doing as a filmmaker?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's loads, even the stuff that had the best intentions I look back on and think, oh, I mean, that was really poorly positioned. I'm specifically thinking actually I did a documentary. I think it was our sophomore year when we had a documentary class. And I did a short documentary on this wonderful, wonderful girl who I used to babysit for. And I'm still quite close with her family and just recently saw them. But I think I watched it again, or actually no, I was showing my partner here, and I was watching it and I realized how badly positioned it is and just how self-indulgent it is. So there's definitely things like that where I look back on and I think, wow, that maybe we didn't put enough time and thought into that. But there's also things like I'm pretty happy with what Georgie and I finished with my final film there. And there's a script I did at the beginning of my master's program when everything was happening with Roe v. Wade, and I was really proud of that. And I'm still quite proud of that. That was something that I got producers to read and things like that. So I was really, really, really happy with how it turned out and the future of what that could become. And then I think with other things, I mean, I guess it's academic, so it's a bit different, but I was really happy with my dissertation. It was also partially a script and then also halfway like an academic paper, but I was really happy with how that turned out and what it became. Something I'm proud of. Oh, like the little projects that we worked on too were just like those are I'm really happy with how those turned out, and it was fun getting to work on those and learn from each other. You know what? I worked on a project for it was for Van's project, I think, now that I think about it. It was for yeah, his dissertation, I think. And I just like it was really fun just being as a group, and I got to know so many people on that set. I also got to work with a couple of our friends who had already graduated, and that was just so much fun. That was a really good experience. And getting to be with Anna and I kind of worked on that one. I did a bit of lighting, she was doing sound. So I was really proud of that one and how many of my friends who were working on it. Yeah, I think if you really look back, there's a lot of despite how cheesy or kind of embarrassing parts of it may be, there's a lot of ones that I can also notice that, I had fun on that or my friends in that, so I really liked it. So I can recognize that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just regarding what your plans are for the future, I'm curious if you do get the opportunity to eventually make your own feature at some point, what would your dream project be?
Oh, wow. Okay. A dream feature. I mean, there's always scripts in the back burner, but I think for the next while, it's definitely going to be about shorts. Shorts are very big here. You can get a lot of funding. So, from a reality perspective, I've been looking at shorts. Even if I weren't to produce it here, it would be back home and it would just still be a short. There's the big one that I'd really like to do that I was talking about before was a script that I did during my master's degree. And it was the first one that I did that it was something I was really, really proud of that I wrote during Roe v. Wade. and during when that was overturned and all of these things were happening. And that's a script that I am really proud of and I really want to get made. It's less relevant, but it's still, quite relevant with the goings on in the States, and there's lots more to write about. But that would be a huge one that I'd really like to get made. A bit of a dream project there. Yeah, and there's many more to come. So we'll see.
Yeah, and moving on to the last two questions that I have for you. So, looking back on everything that you've been through, would you say that being a filmmaker is not just what you want to do with your life, but do you think it's also what you're meant to do with it?
Oh, that's a deep one. I suppose I'll put it this way. I have a good friend of mine who came to visit me back in May, and she said to me, I can't think of what I want to do, and I'm in my 20s, my late 20s now, and I finished school and I still really don't know what I want to do with my life. And I can't help but feel a bit jealous that you've always known. And it put a lot of things in perspective because sometimes the 20s can be a tough road, but I have always really known what I wanted to do and the field that I wanted to work in, albeit I've not always had the most realistic approach, but here we are. So I do think that it's always been what I've wanted. I think that working in film in general, I'll broaden it to just the film industry, has always been what I wanted. I think that as many people, I'm in the same boat, kind of, I'm still finding my feet with where I want to be. But I think at the end of the day, it's likely to be development. Writing and development is what I really, really, really enjoy. And I do think it's maybe what I've meant to be doing. I think it's something that I have a great passion for. So if I put it out there, I suppose maybe it'll come true. So maybe yes, I am meant to work as a development, who knows, in the development department or as a screenwriter, but I don't know. I think that's also about the kind of work that I'm doing myself and the kind of work that I try to get done. So we'll see. It may change, but I definitely feel that this is the right route for me at the moment.
I definitely agree. And just to close this off, any advice for any other aspiring filmmakers out there or creatives just based on your own experience?
Sure, yeah. I think for filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers, well, I suppose if I think about it in the way that like what I really wish I could have heard. I think that yes, there's a reality to it. There's a reality piece to it that you have to acknowledge. You have to acknowledge that there's not a lot of money in starting out, and sometimes there's not a lot of money in where you end up either. But as long as you can acknowledge that and you can take the leap of faith and really go for what you want, that's already a big step. And I think for people who are looking into potentially starting out, but they really don't know either where to start out or they're a bit afraid to. I think at the end of the day, you have to think about what's going to make you happy in the long term, what's going to be something that you're going to feel fulfilled by. And I can say that this has been that route for me. And for a lot of people it is, and for a lot of people it isn't. But I think taking the first step to be able to understand that about yourself or to at least try it out, that's going to be huge for you. And maybe you'll realize that it's not for you and you'll take a different route, and that's okay too. Because I think at the end of the day, when you're young and you really enjoy films, there shouldn't be any pressure to start making films. There shouldn't be any pressure to start doing something really, really early because for me, I felt that there was. And there was almost a competitiveness that I felt when I first went into my bachelor's degree, and that just wasn't necessary. I wish that maybe that's a bit of an advice there. Get to know the people in your class and really, really get to know what they excel at and what they want to learn and what they're interested in. Because part of me wishes that I had worked on a film with Hunter, or I had worked on more films with you, and I had worked with Chloe more, and I'd asked Cassidy she was a great she worked on the sound for their dissertation, and I thought that was fantastic. And it wasn't a route that I had ever seen her doing because I knew she was very creative and artistic. So I really wished I had worked with that group more, and I had worked with Felicity and all of those guys. And yeah, I guess get to know the people around you and get to know them and try to work with everybody you possibly can because that's you can only benefit from it. You only learn those things by actually doing them. So collaboration, yeah, save your money so you can make your films. That's a big one. And yeah, talk to everyone, make networks. I think sometimes networking is a big one that was like oversold as people saying if you don't want to work in a field that, there's certain things like in film that you don't really need networking for. But of course it is incredibly important in so many ways. Much of what I'm doing right now involves networking. So working at a film festival, you have to network it. You have to at least know a lot of people. So save your money for your films, talk to everyone, and maybe network a little bit, but don't stress yourself out because it's not the be all end all. That's what I would give for advice. So hopefully that's helpful. I don't know. I don't want to mislead any young filmmakers out there.
No, yeah, that's all great advice. Thank you. All right, guys, I think that that's the end of this interview. Megan, thank you again for being here.
Thanks for having me, Cade. It's great.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you later.